Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I thought it might be fun to count down the top 10 most expensive alternate art cards in the Pokemon TCG at the moment, because, you know, why not, ladies and gentlemen? Why not? Plus, it was something I was obsessing over this morning, so I figured, yeah, now's as good a time as any to have a nice little chat about it. Now, we are only talking special art cards. There are some gold cards nowadays that have a decent chance of jumping in among here. Value-wise, the Snorlax from Chilling Reign has certainly become a rather expensive, valuable card, but we are focusing on the alternate arts here, because as far as I'm concerned, they're way more fun. Now, remember, these didn't actually come around until Battle Styles, so essentially there are three sets we are talking about here, and those are Battle Styles, Chilling Reign, and Evolving Skies. But right off the bat, I've got to let you know, none of the top 10 are from Battle Styles. The closest Battle Styles gets to the list is Rapid Strike Urshifu V Max, which comes in at about a $70 card. Doesn't make the list, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing from Battle Styles actually makes it. And there's two potential reasons for this. Number one, it's the older set, so it's more readily available. Number two, Battle Styles just isn't as good a set. I've told you how booster boxes of Battle Styles are selling way more cheaply than others. I mean, we've seen them being sold booster boxes for less than 100 quid, $100, so that is always going to mean that the individual cards, even the most sought after ones, end up on the lower end. And one last little caveat before we get going, I am fully aware that I'm giving prices here and they may not be perfect. I've gone through a bunch of places and then eBay sold, and I have cobbled together a rough value of these top 10 cards. Let's be super clear. They are firstly subject to change, and secondly a little bit all over the place. Sometimes the high and low for these cards are like 50% different, so I'm doing my best, but take it as a rough guide, not a guaranteed value. Brilliant. So in at number 10, we've got Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, which comes in at about $90. And in a way, this makes me sad, and in a way, this makes me happy. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, this is, of the cards on this list, probably number one artwork-wise. At least for me. I think this is a phenomenal card. And it's drawn by the lovely Mitsuhiro Arita. And the artwork is, as I've said, beyond phenomenal. And yet it comes in at number 10 on this list. But having said that, that means it's cheaper and easier for me to get hold of, so I can't be too upset. The point is, what we've got here is phenomenal artwork drawn by Arita, who is probably the most popular Pokemon TCG artist, or at least right up there. And Shadow Rider Calyrex has proven to be an extremely playable card. We've seen it all over the top tables at the Players' Cups, etc. So, yeah, that is going to build up pretty quickly. In at number 9, we've got Dragonite V from Evolving Skies, and this is coming in at about a $90 card, but trending slightly higher than Shadow Rider Calyrex, which is why it comes in at number 9. There are a couple times that cards have the quote-unquote same value. Where that's happening, just please trust that I've gone through and looked, and the average is slightly higher for one than the other. I have gone through and broken the ties, so the ones that are tied are not listed in a random order. I have looked through and seen which one generally tends to be a bit more expensive. And the thing is, Dragonite V is not a terribly playable card. It's just not. It's fine, it's an interesting card, but I don't think it's fair to call it a particularly groundbreaking, amazing card in terms of playability. So for that reason, it comes in on the lower end of the list. It is worth pointing out here, the list is dominated by VMAXs, which shouldn't really surprise anyone. The pull rates for VMAXs are a fair bit lower than the pull rates for Pokemon Vs, so you should expect the majority of cards on the list to be VMAXs. Think of this as a nice little exception. Either way, it's a very cool card. In at number 8, you've got Leafeon VMAX. And on the one hand, Leafeon VMAX is a very, very popular card, because Leafeon VMAX is a very, very popular Pokemon. And on the other hand, Leafeon VMAX has proven to be a pretty playable card. 2 energy, 60 damage for each energy in your opponent's retreat cost. That's kind of cool. And we got ways to build that up and have a lot of fun with it. So, yeah. When you combine a popular Pokemon with a playable card, that's going to put you high on the list. Similarly, we've got in at number 7, Glaceon VMAX, which again is about a $95 card, but trends a little bit higher. And the thing is, Glaceon VMAX is actually a bunch less playable than Leafeon. Leafeon is a really playable card that has been topping tournaments all over the place online. Glaceon VMAX has not been. But if we look at the artwork, there's a Pikachu on it, and there's a Meryl, and Azumarill, there's an Eevee, there's a Feebas at the back, there's a Pancham. This is largely artwork which has elevated this one up. Leafeon has that full-on playability factor. It's a genuinely, legitimately good card. Glaceon doesn't and isn't. Not yet, anyway, although it's got huge potential. You know, the ability makes it immune to VMAXs, so there's definitely potential there. But the fact of the matter is, Glaceon is more artwork, whereas Leafeon brought in that playability as well. In at number 6, we've got the only other Pokemon V on the list. It's Rayquaza V. And as much as I think Rayquaza is going to end up being a really playable deck, I think it's going to be really good, that is not the way the format has started. It is not proving to be a hugely brilliant playable card. It is proving to be fine, but not particularly good. What that means is that this card essentially ends up on the list because, oh my goodness, look at the artwork. And I'm sure not everyone's going to love it, and that is absolutely fine. But the fact of the matter is, Rayquaza is one of the most popular Pokemon out there. And when you go and combine that with the amazing artwork with Zinnia, and there's a Whismur there for some reason as well, that really tells you what you need to know. Rayquaza V is always going to be a good card in terms of value and how much people want it, because at the end of the day, it's a Rayquaza. And actually, I lied to you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, that was not the last Pokemon V on the list. The last Pokemon V on the list with about $110 value comes in with Galarian Moltres V. And I'm kind of delighted, because this is one of the 2 alternate arts I've been able to pull from packs so far. So even though I've not been pulling very many of them, at least apparently when I have been pulling them, I've been making them count. And the thing is, when it comes to Galarian Moltres V, there are a couple things we can look at here. But predominantly, you've got to think it's the artwork. This is a card that ever since it was initially revealed, we have just seen so many people getting so excited about this card. The artwork is just, it's captured the attention of people, frankly. It has captured people's attention, and people just absolutely love it. It's also a phenomenally playable card, I should mention, because the ability Dire Flame Wings lets you attach a Darkness Energy from your discard pile to it once per turn, does not stack. And then Free Energy 190 isn't phenomenal, but when you're building it up for free, it becomes really good. And actually here you have the confluence of a really playable card, and an artwork that people are going absolutely nutty for, and that explains why it's a Pokemon V, but it still manages to just sneak its way into the top 5. In at number 4, we've got the other one that I managed to pull from a pack, which makes me very happy. It's Sylveon VMAX. And what we've got here is kind of like Glaceon VMAX, but more playable and a more popular Pokemon. Because the artwork here, there are real similarities. You've just got a bunch of Pokemon playing around, a giant version, a Dynamax version of the Pokemon. But firstly, Sylveon is just more popular than Glaceon. And secondly, Sylveon decks have been doing better. Free energy, 70 damage, plus 30 more for each different type of Pokemon on your bench. We're not talking Leafeon levels of playability here yet, but it is a deck which is popping up in online tournaments all over the place. So this is making a bit of a difference, quite frankly. It is the artwork more than anything. It's got that Glaceon vibe to it. But the fact that it's both Sylveon and a very playable card explain why this has jumped so many spots ahead of Glaceon, even though Glaceon was awesome. In at number 3, and I'll be honest with you, this one surprised me, it's the highest card from Chilling Reign, it's Blaziken VMAX. And the thing is, I am not in on this card. And I know that art is very subjective, and that's absolutely fine. And I know the artwork is cool. It's not for me. You've got the Zangoose, who frankly does not look like he's doing well. And then you've got your Inteleon line dancing on a building with a giant Blaziken. But I know a lot of people do love the artwork, because Blaziken itself's not a hugely playable card. It's fine. You know, 2 energy, 130, attach extra energy. Sounds like it's got potential. But Blaziken is not popping up at the top tables of all of these online tournaments. It is not topping like some of the other cards on this list are. It really is just the artwork. And why this has captured the attention of people more than stuff like Sylveon, which is also a more playable card, I don't know. But looking around pretty much everywhere, I can pick up Blaziken VMAX cheaper than Sylveon VMAX, at least at the point I record it. They're very close in value, don't get me wrong. To be honest with you, 3 till 10 are all very close. There really isn't a huge amount between them. But for some reason, Blaziken comes up, and I really do think it is just the artwork that people have fallen in love with. The top 2, however, by now you should have guessed. In at number 2, it's Umbreon VMAX. And this actually surprised me a bit. I thought Umbreon was going to be number 1. Because firstly, Umbreon is a ridiculously popular Pokemon. It is one of the biggest, most popular ones out there. Number 2, look at the artwork and how amazing it is. And number 3, Umbreon VMAX is one of the best cards in the game right now. Single strike decks have been doing much, much better since rotation, and a big part of the reason is having Umbreon VMAX for gusting and a decent darkness type attacker, which again, when you're hitting weakness on stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex, is really important. So we've got this perfect mix here of hyper popular Pokemon, stunning artwork, really playable card. And it's still a $200 card, don't get me wrong. There is a gigantic gap between Umbreon and the rest of the top 10, but it's losing out to number 1, which is Rayquaza. And the fact of the matter is, Rayquaza is not as playable a card as Umbreon. Now, I think it's a phenomenal card, and I think it's going to see a bunch of play, if not now, certainly in the future, but it's not seeing as much play as Umbreon. And I don't love the artwork as much, but then again, it's a subjective thing, like we said. But I really do think the biggest issue here is it's Rayquaza. And Umbreon might be popular, but Rayquaza is Rayquaza. And I honestly do think that's your explanation here. I mean, Rayquaza and Umbreon really are number 1 and 2. It is not close with the rest of the top 10. And I'm sure at some point they might flip-flop back again. But whereas with Umbreon, I can look at it and go, playable, Umbreon, stunning artwork. Rayquaza does not have that same playability factor, so to get all the way up to number 1 really must just be the Rayquaza factor. Now, like I've said, this was information that was taken from a bunch of websites. This was not a subjective list. I went to a bunch of websites and then eBay sold, and I used that to make a list of what were the 10 most expensive from the data I looked at. But certainly you can be telling me which your favourites are and which you expect to go up or down in value in the future. So go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.